morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. This webinar is titled, Why Use SharePoint as Your Document Manager? My name is Rohit. I am the MD of Alberon. With me is James, and James is the SharePoint consultant we have in the organization. I'm going to quickly run through, it's not dead by PowerPoint, just to give you a quick idea about who Alberon is and what we do. So Alberon is an Oxford-based software development and SharePoint consultancy. We started the business in 2006, based in Headington in Oxford, around 14 staff members at the moment, and we are specialists in web application development, SharePoint consultancy, training and development. At the same time, of course, moving into the Power BI space as well, we deliver quite a lot of trainings for businesses around Oxfordshire area, and yes, delivering the reports and analytics as well. We also deliver bespoke software where needed. We use PHP, Python stack to deliver these software applications as well. So if you have a custom application need, we can definitely talk to you about that or consult you on it. I can talk about the services, but everything from training, consultancy, development, and going into ongoing maintenance of the application, whether they are off-the-shelf SharePoint, Power BI, Power Apps based, or whether they are fully custom high code development environments like PHP, Python, JavaScript, we can help you with both. A little bit further about SharePoint. I am hoping if you're in the webinar, you already know what SharePoint is and how SharePoint works. But the important bit is what target integration and Alberon together can do for you. When it comes to SharePoint, we can help you, consult you, define the strategy, define or plan your SharePoint rollout, deliver some trainings to you, and then help you with migration and upgrades as well. Today's topic is very important, very topical, because generally when businesses get into Office 365, Microsoft 365, they don't know where to start from when it comes to SharePoint. So that's where we come in and help as well. We work with quite a number of IT consultancies, those who are working with box standard email and hardware configurations to deliver SharePoint services through them. It helps because SharePoint is a very niche space. Why you should use SharePoint, James will be talking more about it later on today, so I won't take any of his glory here. And just quickly giving you an overview of some of our happy clients who have been working with us for a good while, and handing it over to James after this. So James, over to you. As I said, the topic today, everyone, is why use SharePoint as your document manager.
Good morning, everyone. As Rohit said, my name is James McDowell. I'm Senior SharePoint Consultant at Alberon. Been with the company only a short time, since April, but we're starting to deliver these webinars now, which we found have been really well received. And we're also looking at producing some more in-depth hands-on training sessions, hopefully coming up in the summer, where we can go through some of these in a lot more detail and actually let you loose on our test system to go through some stuff. Cool. So as Rohit was saying, SharePoint, a lot of organizations, when they move to Microsoft 365 and they're going to adopt SharePoint as their primary document management system, they're normally moving from a on-prem file server type system, File Explorer, or some sort of legacy shared drive. But what SharePoint allows you to do is actually create through a DMS journey and go from your legacy folder structure, which is normally just static files and folders, using some of the built-in features of SharePoint and some additional resources provided by Microsoft 365 to actually create what we like to call a smart document management system. Now I've put 4 stages here. There is some more, but obviously I'm going to have to keep this quite brief as it's an overview. So the first one is metadata. Now, traditionally people use folders to group and store their data, but SharePoint actually allows you to create metadata tags directly in your document libraries. Metadata is, if you're not sure, is information about information. So you can create a taxonomy of keywords that you can use to tag your documents. This can be anything from product types or services, customers, location, departments, whatever it is that's appropriate to your business and how you work. And then you can take these keywords and actually tag them to your documents, which makes it far more easier to index and also to utilize the very effective search and filtering options that are available in SharePoint. Interestingly, it also allows you to eliminate your folder structure, and we have worked with clients on this where they've completely moved away from folders, and they have in each document library just a complete list of files, no folder structure at all, but they use the search and filtering in the metadata to actually group their data or to search for particular documents. This also really helps with custom views as well. In every document library, you can create custom views based on the column headings in your document library. You can base it on metadata as well. So you could have a view that shows only the files associated with one particular customer, for example. And you can create as many of these views as you need. So individuals or teams within your departments, when they go into the document library, they can very quickly filter or bring up a view that's applicable to them. So they're not seeing information that isn't relevant or information that they don't need to see. And the last one I've put there is automation. This is a game changer for a lot of people. As SharePoint is embedded in Microsoft 365, you get access to Power Apps, so the Power Apps itself, Power BI, Power Automate, and these are fully integrated into SharePoint and the SharePoint document libraries. And Power Automate in particular, we will be covering this on a future webinar, so if it's something you'd like to know more about, please drop into that. But Power Automate allows you to create automation to automate your workflows and business processes, and it's very effective when it comes to manually intensive tasks that you might have or repetitive tasks. So you can actually use Power Automate to provide automation for all of that, which frees you up and gives you more time to concentrate on more important tasks that you may have individually or within your team. So automation is really key to this, and in combination with custom views, metadata, and search and filtering, you can actually create a dynamic smart document management system and not just a static list of files and folders. And this is something that we can help you with, and we are helping clients with currently. Some of the other features before we dive into an actual live document library. So the first one, co-authoring, mobile working and sync. So all the applications within 365, including SharePoint, are accessed in the cloud through your web browser. The online versions, the real ethos around this is around collaboration and teamwork. So for example, in Excel Online, you can have a whole team working on a spreadsheet at the same time, and it'll show you at the top of the document who's in the document with you, and it'll even show you on the page what they're editing and what they're actually updating. And you've got the options to chat and send comments to each other. So it's a really, really good collaboration tool online. Some of the applications also have a desktop version, which you can install locally on your device. And this gives you the full functionality of those applications. So that includes the Office ones that you're familiar with, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, but also Power Apps and some of the other ones. So if you need to do some more in-depth work, you can take the document into the desktop version, do what you need to do. And once it's saved, it will automatically upload back into the cloud and make that information available to everybody. The majority of them, including SharePoint, have smartphone and tablet versions, so you can fully work on the move. SharePoint smartphone app is really good. It allows you to access your document library so you can see everything you would if you're out and about. But if you are going remote and you're going to go to an area where you know you might not get an internet connection, you can still preempt this by syncing your document libraries or some of your individual files and folders to your device, and that will take them offline. So that allows you to still continue working without an internet connection. And once you get back to somewhere where you can connect to the internet again, any changes you've made in those documents will sync back up to the cloud and update. So all these suite of apps allows you to work whatever location or whatever situation you're in, which is really useful. Second one is Teams integration. A lot of people don't realize how connected Teams and SharePoint are. Some people see them as competitors. Some organizations are very heavy Teams users and don't see the need for SharePoint, and vice versa. But actually, you should look at them as working in harmony together. They're not competing. When you create a SharePoint site in the team site configuration, which is the most popular for organizations if they're constructing an intranet, it will create a 365 group, which creates a number of resources, including a Microsoft Teams channel. Now, any files created in Microsoft Teams, if you're collaborating on a document during a Teams call, that's automatically saved back up to SharePoint and vice versa. So there is a real connectivity between Teams and SharePoint. And when you understand how to use them together, it's a really powerful combination. And we will be having a Teams webinar in a few weeks' time. So I'd encourage you to join that if you want to know more. Two-stage recycle bins doesn't sound very exciting, but actually one of the biggest concerns we have from clients is they're worried about breaking stuff or deleting stuff inadvertently. They do get a bit nervous about the change because 365 isn't just a software update. It actually gives you the opportunity to work differently as a business and work in a completely different way. And sometimes the appetite for that change is quite low. So anywhere that we can provide reassurance is really useful. And recycle bins is one of them. So any member of a SharePoint site will have access to a recycle bin, which works in exactly the same way as the one on your desktop. So anything you delete from a document library will go into the recycle bin, and then you have the option to empty the bin or restore the document back to where it came from. If you delete from your recycle bin, it's not gone forever. It actually goes into a second stage recycle bin, which is accessible by administrators and site owners. So if you inadvertently delete something from your recycle bin, all you need to do is give your administrators or site owner a shout and they can restore it back. Once the document's deleted and goes into either of these bins, you've got a 93-day time limit before the document is actually removed from your SharePoint system. And that's normally more than enough for any mistakes to be rectified or recovered. So that's just a bit of an assurance piece. Governance. This is actually our webinar for next week, so I'll touch on this briefly. But there's a number of options in here. Some of it built into SharePoint, some is an additional resource that Microsoft provides. First one, version control. There's really effective version control in SharePoint document libraries. All team members can see versions. The site owners can set the version policy in the document library settings. And you can very quickly, either within the document or within the document library, look at the version history of a particular file or folder. And if need be, you can one-click restore back to a previous version. So if a file had a huge number of mistakes or it became corrupted, it's very simple to restore back to a previous version. It also shows you the version history, so you've got a full audit trail of what changes were made for each version. So if you're a document owner and something's happened that you need to review, you can actually look back through the version history and see what changes were made when and by who. So it gives you a lot of control over your documents. Approvals. There is an approvals app in Power Automate, which I will touch on the webinar when we get to Power Apps, but there is a built-in approval function in SharePoint document libraries. And when that's turned on, what happens is any new documents uploaded to that document library will not automatically be seen by everybody. They will only be seen by site owners, or if you've set up an approvers group. Now, the approvers or site owners will see the documents and it'll have a status of pending. They get the option then to review the document. If they're not happy with it, they can reject it and it'll be returned to the author for them to make changes, or if the document's no longer required, they can delete it. But if it is approved, it then becomes visible in the document library for everybody. And we've got organizations that have found this really, really useful. For example, if you've got a document library of of publications that need review. Maybe they're going to customers and you want some sort of control over it before you actually make them live. So this is very quick to turn on and very simple to use. Alerts is another one. You can set alerts for individual files or folders. And basically this will look for any changes that you specify. So you could set up an alert to say, if this spreadsheet is updated, I want to know about it, if you're the document owner. And as soon as a change is made, you can either receive an email notification or an SMS alert to your phone if your phone is saved into your 365 profile. If you're tracking a lot of documents and you don't want your email and phone to go off every 5 seconds, you can actually choose to have a daily or weekly summary of all the documents that you're looking at. So if you need some sort of control over it, or you need to keep an eye on things that are going on, you can set up these alerts and it'll always make sure you're in the know. It's quite a useful feature. And the last one is Microsoft Purview. I'm going to touch on this very briefly because this is a very big topic that we'll be covering next week. Purview is a resource available from Microsoft. It is included in some enterprise licenses, but you can procure it as a standalone purchase. It's a very powerful governance and data protection tool that you can deploy all sorts of policies or benchmarking across your entire data estate to look at everything from confidential information, personal data, compliance with legislation, and a huge number of policies. If governance is important to you, if your organization works with a lot of sensitive data, personal data, or you need to provide evidence to auditors or external partners that you're compliant, Purview is a brilliant option. And it doesn't just work across SharePoint document libraries. It also works across Teams, Yammer, Dynamics, Outlook, and OneDrive as well. So like I said, we will be touching on this next week in our governance webinar. But as you can see, there's a lot of really useful features here. And now I'm going to stop sharing briefly. Okay, so everyone, this is a demonstration SharePoint site that we've created that we use in the discovery sessions with some of our new clients. One of the really good things about using SharePoint as your document management system is that it allows you to empower your teams to make decisions for themselves, so they're not completely reliant on IT for first-line support. In sort of on-prem file servers, normally you're reliant on the IT team to create new files or new drives if you need to, but SharePoint actually allows you to create your own document libraries within your team just by selecting new and document library. So your team can create as many as they need and they're not having to reach out for IT support on this, which is really useful. This SharePoint site is set up in the team site configuration, which, as I said before, is normally the most popular with organizations. And in that configuration, all of your document libraries that you create or any of your data around the recycle bin are on the menu on the left-hand side. And as I said, your team can create as many document libraries as they need. Going back to the Teams integration, when you first create a SharePoint site, it does create this default document library. And within that, there is a folder called General. And that folder is directly linked to your Teams channel. So anything you put into this folder will be available in Teams, and vice versa. Anything you create in Teams will automatically be available here. So it is a really good sync between Teams and SharePoint. I've created a test document library here so that you can see what it looks like. So when I was talking about reassurance before about recycle bins, another thing some companies want to manage their introduction to SharePoint. And although we recommend using metadata and actually using that to index and catalog your data, some companies want to replicate their existing file structure because it gives some familiarity to their staff when they move over, so they can kind of manage the change going in. And that's perfectly achievable in SharePoint. You can, as you can see, it looks no different than your file explorer on your device. So if you've got a folder structure that you're happy with, you can keep that when you migrate your data in and it will look exactly the same. And we've had clients that were worried about the move to SharePoint, but when they get into the document libraries and they see that it looks the same as before, they're actually really pleased about that, because it allows them to sort of gradually discover some of the other features that SharePoint provides that they may have not had before. Creating documents is really easy. You've got a list of options there, from Office documents, folders, Visio drawings. You can also add hyperlinks. So if your team regularly visit a website or another area of another SharePoint site, for example, you can actually place a link in, as you've seen I've done there. So you're not having to navigate out of SharePoint to go and open up another tab. You can do it all directly from here, which is really useful. Column headings. So these are based around the custom views that I was talking about, where when you create a document library from new, it will have 4, I believe, which is the file type, file name, when it was last modified, and who it was modified by. But as you can see here, I've added in additional column headings around file size, version. The approval status is based on that approval function that I told you about. So because I'm a site owner, these 2 folders are pending and I can see them. If a site member came in, they wouldn't see these folders in that list. They would only see the ones that have been approved. And you can also add in other columns around sensitive data or retention if you've created those policies in Microsoft Purview. And these last 2 columns are based on metadata tags that we've created. So you can basically set up any column headings that are relevant to you and create a new view. And when you go into your document library, you can just quickly select the view you want, and it will just show you the information that you need. You've also got the option to add new columns, and it will bring up a list that are pre-built in. So you can show everything from locations, currencies, people. People is quite useful because it actually pulls in their 365 profile, so it will display their photograph and name. So it makes these views look a bit more dynamic than maybe you're used to in File Explorer. Another thing I was going to touch on was third-party integration. So SharePoint document libraries are actually compatible, as a lot of 365 is, with third-party software. So for example, I'll give you 3 that I've used before. If your company uses SurveyMonkey, for example, you can integrate that with SharePoint so that SurveyMonkey surveys will appear when you select a new document, and you can actually initiate surveys straight from SharePoint without having to go out to SurveyMonkey. If your organization uses Adobe Acrobat or Adobe Pro, that Adobe can help you fully integrate that into SharePoint, and all the options of Adobe Acrobat and Adobe Pro are available directly in the document library. And it will also make Adobe the primary PDF viewer and editor for SharePoint, which organizations that use Adobe find that really, really useful. And another one that I've used that I've actually added myself to this. So you can choose from your SharePoint page, you've got an option to add a new app. That will actually take you to a SharePoint store where you can add in third-party products that your company may use. One of them is DocuSign, which I've added in. So if you use DocuSign, which is very popular, and you wanted to sign a document or use any of the features of DocuSign, once it's added into your document libraries, you can just select the options for
and get the signature with DocuSign. I see the option there. It's an interesting feature,
yeah.
James, and very useful, I think, when you're trying to use applications in combination. I may come back to you and just use this opportunity to ask our attendees. Now, I'm very conscious that quite a lot of people are moving over from shared libraries, from shared folders. Is there a possibility of being able to use this on the desktop?
Yes, you can make this available. You can download documents and folders back to your desktop. It doesn't remove the folders or files from SharePoint. They're still there, so you're downloading a copy essentially. But we try and encourage people to kind of move away from their desktop environment because there really isn't a requirement. You can sync some of your folders with OneDrive. So if you're someone that uses OneDrive a lot, which for those that don't know, OneDrive is basically your personal document library, essentially. You can add shortcuts to any folders or document libraries in SharePoint to your OneDrive, so they will just be listed with all your personal files.
But I know that you can have OneDrive for Business as well, which also synchronizes the SharePoint library onto your computer. That's also a possible way of using Microsoft Documents and being able to use the documents on your desktop, but then at the same time synchronize them with the cloud, where people can go edit, people can feel like they are in their old environment of having shared drives.
Yeah, absolutely. You can. That's absolutely correct. You can make SharePoint document libraries and folders available in File Explorer so that you access them the old way. I will offer two thoughts on that, two cautions. If a document library has a huge amount of data in it, syncing that to your desktop will crash your laptop or your desktop, and I've seen that happen. So you need to be careful about what you're syncing. But also, one of the other reasons why SharePoint is a really good document management system is because you get access to everything else that SharePoint provides, which is this interactive workspace that you can create, lists, spaces, all the other features. So you shouldn't think of SharePoint as just a document storage unit. It's actually a collaborative workspace. And if you sync to File Explorer and don't actually go into SharePoint, you miss out on a lot of that. And also things like the Teams integration and stuff.
People host their intranet on this as well. So effectively, you can have a full-fledged website running here, which is, document libraries and links going into other parts of the documents as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the most popular way of deploying this for a business would be to create an intranet where you would create a SharePoint site as your company landing page that everyone's got access to. And as you can see here, you can publish news and events and people. So you can have sort of generic company information. And then you can have associated SharePoint sites for each team within the business that are linked back to that company hub. And then you can set up a full navigation bar at the top, as you can see there, so people can very quickly navigate around their site. But yeah, although it's a brilliant document management system when it's used correctly, it is a lot more than that. There's a lot more you can do with SharePoint, and I think, that's why it kind of is leaps and bounds ahead of the old traditional File Explorer.
James, thank you for your time today. It was fantastic, and going through SharePoint and why it can be, how it can be used as a document management system for an organization. Sometimes people go, is it for SMEs or is it for more enterprise level businesses? Don't forget, guys, we all have documents. We deal with them on a regular basis, and as soon as you want to share one file with one more person in the organization, you immediately have a need of managing that document. And application is included in your Office 365, Microsoft 365 subscription. So why not get the best out of it? There, James, in the meantime, I would like to go back to that document library you set up. And there was a particular section where you were showing all the sections around, check out too. That effectively is a way to block people from editing simultaneously, or is it a way of still collaborating with other people but not making it available to others?
So it's a great question. Checked out to was highly encouraged in legacy versions of SharePoint. I remember when I first started using SharePoint Server, which is a version of SharePoint you can install on your company network. We were heavily encouraged to use checkout, and what it does is it takes the document offline and blocks anyone else from being able to make any changes. So if you didn't want to collaborate, or you didn't want multiple people accessing it while you were doing some work, if it was quite critical, you can check the document out to yourself, and that will lock it for you. People will still be able to view the document, but when they open it up, it will come up with this document is checked out, view only. Once you've done the changes you need to make and you check it back in, all those changes will be uploaded back to the cloud, and the document will be available for everyone else to use. Now, from my experience, it's not used as much as it used to be, but it's still important to know that option is there. they're trying to push more around collaboration now and actually working constructively with your team rather than sort of locking documents down. But it's there. So if you need to use it, it's an option. I always include that checked out to column in my document library view, because if someone does lock it out, you need to know about it and you want to see. You will get a little icon to say that it's next to the file name itself. There'll be a little red arrow, but it is useful to know it is. Particularly, when we were using checked out to a lot, it was quite common for people to check a load of documents out and then go off on leave for a couple of weeks. So it's always handy to know who's done that.
Having said that, I think there is an option where the admin can check it back in.
Yeah,
right? They will lose their changes though.
Yeah, there is. But yeah, no, it's important to know it's there. It can be a useful function for some people, but really the ethos should be around collaboration, really. And
definitely. Right. Thank you very much for joining today. I hope you enjoyed the session. I hope you enjoyed the webinar, and we look forward to bringing more information and content to you over the period of time. Thank you for joining in. Enjoy the rest of the day. See you soon. Thank you, James.
Thank you.